Thank you, and welcome to the OIS Podcast. We appreciate you being here and hopefully can gain a lot of insights as we're able to interview some great guests in the world of eye care and especially some of the more recent, innovations that have come out. And today I'm lucky to get to revisit with Jeff Now. Dr. Now is, of course, the CEO of a company that recently had a launch product and has gone through the process of what's involved in that with their drug Tyrvaya. And of course, his company is Oyster Point. And we're going to take you through a little bit of just getting an update since the launch and the approval, and maybe a little bit of what you learned when launching a new drug in the United States, what things surprised you about the launch, what were the more difficult things, then maybe take a peek at the future. So Jeff, thank you for being part of today's podcast.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Paul. It's good to be back and talk to you again.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So let's get an update. Where's Oyster Point today, and Tyrvaya in particular, and then we'll start looking at some of the learnings.
Yeah, great. Well, Oyster Point, as many you know, and I think we talked about in our first podcast that we did together. We started out from one employee, and now we are about 250 plus here in the United States. We are at our first year anniversary of the launch of Tyrvaya. And so we're super excited about how the first year has gone. And to date, we've delivered over 62,000 prescriptions to patients throughout the US. What I think is really exciting about the launch and some of the things that we did this year is, this is a novel product, a new mechanism of action, a new delivery system that both has its positives and its challenges. And we did a really great job. The team's done a great job this year of launching the product, and we're excited to hit this 1 year anniversary mark. The product is at the moment in the dry eye space, it's the most often refilled product that's out there. And so, the persistence numbers are great for Tyrvaya, and we're really excited about that. And I think, some of the learnings throughout the year, and I think probably, you can talk to some of your own experience with that. But, when you're introducing a new product into the space, especially one that's in a different form factor that people are used to, what's been really interesting is this sort of dichotomy between both patients and physicians and the way they look at a new way to deliver therapy for dry eye disease. And so, patients are often pretty comfortable with things like nasal sprays, and they have no hesitancy in taking them. But oftentimes, physicians and especially eye care practitioners, the world sort of stops at the forehead and at the bridge of the nose. And, anything above or below that is somebody else's problem. And so I think, there's probably some bit of learning that needed to happen in order for people to get comfortable with delivering a nasally delivered drug for an ocular surface disease. But I'm really excited that our team was able to do that because it's also very fun. You can teach people a lot of new things about anatomy and the way things work. And this is very similar, I would say, to experiences with both myself and some of the people on my team when we first launched many of the drugs that were injected into the intraocular space. There's also lots of hesitancy around that. I remember in the early days, people were being taken to the operating room and draped out, and there was a big production to give injections. And now, it's pretty much an everyday occurrence that hundreds of these are done in a clinic all over the United States. So there's always this learning curve that comes into play when you have something that's novel. And I think we've been able to work through that in this first year with really great success, and just excited as we go into these winter months and sort of turn the corner on the year.
That's great. A really good insight. And I have to agree. I've even shifted how I ask patients. I used to ask, how are your eyes doing? And now I kind of ask, how are things, above the neck? Because I don't want patients getting too much into the systemic. It can take up a lot of time. But it's made me realize there is a lot more we got to look into. And I have to admit, I was one of those barriers. I mean, I knew a lot about the product. I've had good success with the early neurostimulation, even though we knew there was something better coming. But it just wasn't, it's not that, front of mind in terms of always thinking eye drops. And I was telling you a story about it. I had an intern, and I don't normally have interns who change anything I prescribe. They kind of come in residence too until they get pretty far in. And he didn't change. He just had maybe been detailed really well by an Oyster Point rep, and he was just enamored by this whole concept. And so he started telling patients at the end, I want you to try this sample. And they'd all be coming back and talk about retention. I don't think one patient he gave a sample to didn't come back and either refill the request, which goes out at the same time, or ask me for the prescription. The patient response was just incredible. And of course, now it's part of my normal recommendation regimen prescribing. So we prescribe it very regularly, but I hate to admit, as kind of being known as early adapter, I was a little slow too, because I just wasn't thinking of it the way I should. And then, of course, this was very early in the launch and didn't take long to adapt to it. But I bet there are other doctors who experienced that. So what's been some of the keys to allowing that to now happen? So two parts. Number one, do you think the retention from patients, because that is dramatic for me. I've never seen patients remain on a product, request it, ask for refills, ask for a full number of refill options with this product as anything else. Is it just the familiarity with nasal spray? Is it just the effects? And did that surprise you to come out of the gates that strong?
Yeah. So I think it was always our hope when we were launching the product that because the product works so quickly and you're not waiting, with many products, you might be on it for months and then you're coming back to the eye care provider and saying, what do you think? I don't know if I feel anything. Do I look better? And I think with this product, that was the exciting part of being able to deliver something that works so fast is the patients will know right away whether they like it or they don't like it, and they'll know whether it works for them or does not work for them. And I think just the way in which the product works by stimulating that natural tear film, it just has utilization across the whole spectrum of dry eye disease. And so we hear a lot of really great stories from patients who have dry eye associated with contact lens wear, dry eye associated with autoimmune disease. And while all of these patient subtypes are sort of pulled into your clinical trials, you're never really studying each of them in isolation. And so it's been really great to hear just how much of a utility product this has been across the entire dry eye spectrum. And that natural tear film is pretty much something that any patient with dry eye disease could benefit from. And so it's certainly worth a try. And I think the other thing that's interesting to us is, many products are often, given through a course and then the patient stops, and it's very rare that they'll come back. And our hope here with this product is, maybe there's patients who also use it in a seasonal manner, or once they stop taking the product, we have about 14% or so of patients that actually come back and refill it again. And so there could be gaps in therapy, but it's not like you have to restart a 3 or a 6 month cycle. You can actually restart that product and get some of that immediate benefit real quickly.
That has been fascinating for me. The fact that it works across so many patient spectrums related to dry disease. And I was going to ask you what the key area of success has been, but my clinic's 100% referral. So I don't see very many, early stage dry eye patients. I have over 900 positive diagnosed Sjogren's syndrome patients as an example. So I'm seeing, some of the most are referred from ophthalmology, optometry, or rheumatology colleagues. So I've tried it on a lot of Sjogren's patients with great success, and more severe autoimmune patients and even GVHD, and I've been amazed. I've had really good success when using it after in-office procedures, almost like a hedge to ensure that whatever they just paid for out of pocket is going to be more successful, and seeing good success there. And I've had colleagues tell me that they've had really good success using this instead of artificial tears because it's the own natural tear. Do you see a certain spot, or are you pretty comfortable with the fact that it's working everywhere for this drug?
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting about probably eye care provider behavior would be we often take new products and we put them in the bucket of, I'm going to give this to the patient that's failed everything else, and this is sort of last ditch therapy. I think this one's a bit different. And for some patients, such as your patients that come in with a whole regimen of artificial tears and ointments, this is the type of product that could get them off of all of those products so that they don't have to live with the daily burden of trying to decide how to take them and when to take them. I think then for some of our more severe patients, like you mentioned, We see great success in the autoimmune population. We've done some presentations of that group. I think we also have a publication, if it's not out, and it's in press at the moment. And I think the other one that's been interesting that we get outreach from are, dry eye patients who are experiencing dry eye because they're on some of these immunotherapy drugs for cancer. And so I think what's really interesting about what we're doing is we're also really trying to understand the underlying disease mechanisms associated with dry eye. And I think, as we all know, it's a very heterogeneous disease. It's not really in one particular bucket. And I do think that there are probably certain groups of patients out there where it is a nervous system disorder. And I think that's the interesting part about this product, where you can really bypass some of the traditional routes of stimulating tear film, such as if a patient, has damage to the ocular surface where it's not communicating to the lacrimal gland. This is a completely different route that goes back through the brain and the trigeminal nerve and innervates those glands and cells. And so I think that's one of the things that we're excited about is not only being on the market, but all the things that we're starting to learn about these nervous system pathways and how they work for various types of dry eye disease.
That's really great insights. I want to delve in a little bit into your CEO role and kind of your involvement in terms of what you've learned over the last year. You've had a year now of a new drug launch, and there's in next year alone, I think we have at least 5 or 6 different drug launches. Some are for geographic atrophy and other things, but nevertheless, we have a lot of new products coming in from the RX side to our field, and there are going to be CEOs listening to see what they've learned. A lot of these are companies about your size that will have to grow to 200 plus like you've done. What have been some of your key learnings in terms of launching a therapeutic drug as a smaller company?
Yeah, I think the number one most important thing is people, and you really have to build a great team. Be very selective about the people that are working for you and around you. That is a key, and also making sure that one of the things that we pride ourselves on is we are an ophthalmology, optometry, eye care focused company. I mean, that's all we do. So we are not a company that has an oncology platform and we're dabbling in eye care. We are focused 100% on eye care, and I think it's really important also for leadership to get out there in front of the community as much as possible to make sure that we're present. And I know that I think everyone that's listening can probably remember companies where they saw senior leadership and companies where they didn't see senior leadership, and the ones that are really taking an effort to be there at the meetings, out in front of customers, and also talking about the future and what the pipeline will bring, because we're laser focused on delivering new therapies for eye care. And Tyrvaya is the first step in the approved product category, but we have a great pipeline. We're really excited about being here. Most of my team and myself, we've spent our whole careers in eye care.
That is great. And it shows you have a really passionate team around a really successful and good product for patients, and doctors are open to education. So we're seeing that a lot. Did anything surprise you during the course of the launch? Something you said, I planned for all these things. I had all this in mind of what I wanted to launch and what we need to do. And here's the steps and here's how we get the team. And then all of a sudden there's this 1 or 2 things that, that was never thought of that showed up.
Well, obviously, each company has its own unique set of road bumps, and what I would say is, we had some really interesting ones along the way. As we're finishing up phase 3, a respiratory pandemic shows up. So obviously, as you're developing a nasal spray, respiratory pandemic, not high on your list of things that you'd like to happen. I think the team's done a great job of navigating through that, and we've really had some great success. I think the other thing that's happening across the industry right now is obviously the economy, and the economy is it's affecting eye care providers. With as I travel throughout the U.S., staff is a big issue. That impacts us as well, because you guys are so busy, and you don't have the right staff in the office to do your patient load, let alone talk about new products that are coming to market. And I think for us as a company, we talked a little bit about this before we all got on the camera here, but company funding has changed, and so we were lucky enough to go and be a public company before the economy started to take a turn for the worse. But that also presents its challenges as we all go forward and try and figure out how to navigate funding. Drug launches are obviously not inexpensive, and so as people are thinking about launching into this marketplace, they have to really be thoughtful about having that that bucket of money available, and really be thoughtful about how long will this current environment that we're in last. And so I think for us, it's been really a great launch in what we've accomplished, but obviously there's all sorts of little bumps in the road along the way that we couldn't have planned for. But I think being resilient and also being flexible has allowed us to really move past them, and we've continued not only to launch this product into the commercial marketplace, but make great strides on our pipeline as well.
You sure have, and I want to visit pipeline a little bit in a moment, but I want to take a look at 2023 for Tyrvaya right now. Sometimes as I'm meeting with CEOs or having the privilege of getting to do an interview like this, when a product does quite well, and I would say yours has done extremely well in the environment and the market, the patient acceptance, the refill rates, the doctors learning about it, that companies may shift from a message that's really good too soon or too late. What are you thinking for the new year? Is it staying on course because there's still a lot of doctors that need to be educated? Is a new modality in our minds? Are there things you have in mind to continue this growth, and what are kind of that further commercialization plans, so to speak, for the eye care community?
Yeah, well, I think what's exciting about 2023 for us is really this year the strategy on our part has been bringing on new prescribers and really building that base of prescribers throughout the year. As we shift into the 2023 timeframe, that all of those new prescribers will now dovetail with additional coverage. And so our hope is that we continue to evolve with coverage both on the commercial side and the Medicare Part D side. And then once those two things meet in the middle, then I think you're sort of poised to really go into some of those more direct to consumer and marketing aspects, because you have built that solid base and foundation, and you're not at risk of sending lots of patients into the clinic asking for a new product that doesn't have good coverage or that nobody's ever heard of. And so it's always been in our strategy to really build out that base of eye care providers, make sure that we have good coverage, and then we can start to put those marketing dollars to work. And we know that this market, there's just so many patients out there that are just on the couch, and they've tried other things and maybe they've given up, or maybe a new modality like this piques their interest. And I think that's where we'll be able to be really successful. And I think that this product offers a very unique proposition when it comes to marketing, because it is the only nasal spray for the treatment of signs and symptoms of dry eye. So, if someone comes into your office today and says, "Hey, I saw this eye drop, on a TV ad or a commercial," you'd probably have to go through the closet and sort of figure out which one that is. But this is very unique, and so it'll allow us that opportunity to really get the patient to point to what they're looking for.
Makes a lot of sense. I have to tell you, I've never seen so many emails, correspondence from colleagues, talking about we're looking to build a dry eye clinic in 2023, or we're starting to that process. What are the first steps? But I've truly been inundated. I would say sometimes 3 or 4 of those in a day. And so there's obviously great interest. And then there's also the fact that perhaps part of the interest is these new developments, these new products that are succeeding, like we have with Tyrvaya. Let's take it a little more global picture now. What about for the whole company of Oyster Point, being the CEO, and you have that hat to wear too, is not only let's get successful with this product, continue to be the first and the focus, and that success will bring on more, but you also have to continue the longevity. We know companies have to continue to advance and move forward and look at things. What's in store for Oyster Point as a whole, while also continuing the success of this launch, because it's still early on in the launch?
Yeah. So I think that for us, the goal here is, and as we look across the eye care landscape, we see lots of changes happening, right? So we see some people investing in the space. We see some people that traditionally have been leaders maybe de-investing in the space. There's a lot of flux that's going on in the eye care space in general. And I think there's also been sort of shifts. And one of the shifts that we are trying to accomplish is over probably the last decade, it's really shifted towards retina, back of the eye. We've had some great innovations there. We've had some excellent innovations with MIGs and devices and whatnot. And I think, part of the impetus for me, starting this company was we needed innovation for front of the eye and ocular surface disease in general. And I think that really is going to be our focus is, we're going to be one of the few companies that are focused on building into this new year and really investing in ophthalmology, optometry. And, I think that the goal for us is to continue with that singular mission, which is to bring innovative therapies to the eye care space, because I do think that there is a lot of great movement out there in science. I think there needs to be a leader in the space that really tries to understand some of the underlying disease mechanisms that are out there and then bring meaningful scientific innovation to the front of the eye. I think front of the eye has often been sort of relegated to lubricating drops and steroids. And I think there's certainly more to it.
I agree. That's really well said and really exciting for us as eye care practitioners to know the company is dedicated to continuing the advancement, the innovation. I'm so thrilled you've had such a good start with Tyrvaya. I think surprisingly good. Not that I couldn't believe that would happen, knowing the leadership and the team you've put together, but it's a new modality, it's a new approach. And often we tend to be very habitual as practitioners in our way. And when something comes in and has a change, we tend to hold back like I did. And yet, I think the patient's success will dictate this success. And doctors are recognizing that. They're hearing their peers talk about it. They're seeing patients coming back successful. And I think that in the end is what is the key to a successful product. But you also have to have the entire team and the leadership. Unfortunately, Oyster Point has all those things in place. So excited to see what happens in 2023. Anything else I didn't touch on, Jeff, that you might want to add to this and you're open to at this point for sure?
Yeah, I think it's just been a great year. It's been a great year with getting to know those of you out there in the eye care space. We've built a great team. We continue to have a team that's very enthusiastic about the product and really about the science and some of the new innovations that we hope to bring to the table. So we're just excited to be able to partner with the eye care community on something new, and we're hoping for some more innovation going forward.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you. I'm glad to have you as a host. That was incredibly insightful, helpful to those who listen from drug launch perspective, from leadership perspective, from really, this current environment as you so well described. And I'm grateful to have these kind of guests. You did a great job as always, Jeff, and congratulations on your success. And I wish you continued success with Oyster Point.
Great. Thanks a lot, Paul.
Thanks for listening to the OIS Podcast. Tune in next week as we chat science, medicine, and industry with ophthalmology's leading experts. Visit OIS.net for more information on podcasts, events, and exciting new features.